Another week, another show. Jake Malik on the bottom, Dave right next to him, Dave DeRocher. John Shear going crazy up in the top corner. Me, myself, JB Ellis. John, calm down, John. Too much energy right now.
I've never seen him so excited.
You were not like the Eagles in the fourth quarter. Let's start there. Does this team quit? I mean, wow. They were done. They were toast. They looked horrible for most of the game. Then before you know it, Jalen Hurts turns it on. The play calling gets a little bit better. They score some points. The defense makes key plays, keeps Buffalo to field goals. They go down the field in overtime, score a touchdown. Game over. Another sneaky win by the Eagles, who just don't seem to quit. What do you guys think about this team?
John?
They make me upset.
I mean, I get what you're saying about them. They don't quit and whatnot. Their defense didn't look great. Hurts didn't look great. I mean, people are going to put him in the MVP conversation because his rushing touchdowns, but I believe all but 2 of them 11 rushing touchdowns are from the 1 yard out, which he got. He gets pushed by his butt and picked up by other people. So 9 of his touchdowns, he's just like squeezing himself into a tiny little hole and getting thrown across the line. So I don't really know how he's MVP. You keep saying the Eagles don't quit, but their defense didn't particularly look very good. They haven't looked good in about a month. So you keep talking about how they don't quit, but what's up with their defense? And I know they're 10-1, but people were saying after this game is one of the worst 10-1 teams we've seen in a long time. I can't disagree with that. Like, they don't particularly look very good. And maybe this is the ceiling of the Philadelphia Eagles. We keep saying, man, they don't look like last year's Eagles. I thought about this weekend. Maybe they never will, because maybe last year's Eagles team is just unreachable for where they were at from fluidity, how they looked as a team. They meshed, they gelled. This Eagles team, I don't think they're ever going to look like last year's team, and I think it's time that we stop asking them to, because I don't think they're good enough to be last year's Eagles. I just don't think they're as good as the last year's team.
Well, I'll tell you what. If there's a season to be a bad 10-1 team, I mean, this is it, because there's only like 5 other teams that are decisively in charge of their their record. And everyone else is just at par. I mean, I've never seen it. We were talking about this before we hopped on. I've never seen anything like this, in the NFL. When we go through, we look at our picks, and almost, 2/3 of them are coin tosses. There's just everybody's 6 and 6 or whatever whatever week we're in, and they're 10-1, but they're playing, even teams. They're all 5 and 5 that they're playing. So, they could be 10-1 and be mediocre.
Yeah.
I mean, this week's going to be a big challenge. I think the Niners walk in there, and this is going to be a team that, they better show up, because
it's going to tell us a lot. It'll tell us.
I was just going to say, this week will tell us who's the best team in probably the league. Probably, I think realistically, it's a fair statement.
So wait, they beat the Bills, who are very talented. Yeah. They beat the Chiefs, which was the class of the AFC. They beat the Cowboys, the division rival, the week before. They beat the Dolphins 2 weeks before that. So it's not like they beat nobody this season. I mean, they didn't play the Commanders and Giants every week. They beat 4 good teams out of the last 5 weeks, last 5 games.
But the thing is, the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs. I mean, they were down 14 to the Raiders. They came back, but the Raiders are not a very good team. Dallas, you never know who's going to show up. I mean, they could be up by 30, or they could be down by 20.
Dallas played them down to the wire too.
Yeah, you never know. The Dolphins. I mean, that's probably about the best team of the bunch that you listed, because the Bills really aren't that talented. I keep hoping I keep hoping for them to be the Bills I thought they were going to be before the season started, but they just keep proving week after week that they're just not. So I think back to my point. If they're going to be 10-1, this is the season to do it, because even the good teams aren't that great. They've got flaws.
Yeah, and John, you were talking about why Jalen Hurts is in the MVP conversation, and well, Dave was kind of talking about it. That's why there's not a lot of great competition for him, so that's kind of how it goes. I mean, the only other elite quarterbacks, which is obviously the way the position, or rather, excuse me, the award is gone, it goes to that position, doesn't really go to other people. So a lot of other players won't get the recognition they probably deserve. But name me another quarterback that's playing really well besides Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. There's really not. It's
a lot, actually. Jalen Hurts hasn't played great football this year.
name me some other ones, please.
From
There's been a lot of underwhelming quarterbacks.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like Jalen Hurts hasn't played great. He's 11th in yards.
Right,
what
but
is it?
But that's what I'm asking you.
So who's better right now?
Name another quarterback, because you can't. I mean, you can name position players, and I'm happy to listen to it. But unfortunately, regardless if they're better or not, the voters won't agree with it. So it's almost like a.
So let me ask you this, Jake:
argument.
if the Eagles are 7-4 with Jalen Hurts stats, is he MVP?
Yeah, based on the way people are playing, still, unfortunately, yes. That's why Josh Allen is 6-6.
No, he's not MVP. The answer is no, he's not MVP. The only reason he's MVP is because they're 10-1.
Can I finish my point, please?
Only reason.
Can I finish my point, please?
Sure.
Because if you were listening to me, I just said Josh Allen, who's on a 6-6 team, which is considerably worse, in my opinion, is also in the conversation because of his play. So Jalen Hurts is in there because of his prowess of how well he's playing and his team's record. And Josh Allen's there because despite a bad record, he's actually played some pretty solid football. And unfortunately, a lot of other players, like I was saying, and Dave kind of alluded to, it's been really underwhelming. There's not been a lot of great players.
You'll never win MVP at 6-6.
Shrinks significantly on this year. It's not like you have Mahomes and Burrow who are both playing out of their mind. Burrow is hurt and Mahomes has looked average at best. He's been, compared to his own standards. So it's a smaller pool.
The only problem with your argument, Jake, is that Josh Allen has actually lost games for them this year. He's had turnovers and key times in the past. I think he's been the greatest quarterback. I mean, year over year, even when Mahomes got it. I love Josh Allen as a player and as a guy, but he's actually lost games for him this year. The unfortunate thing is that MVP is tied to wins. Just like, in my opinion, hands down, the Heisman should go to the kid at LSU, Jaden Daniels. I mean, that's who it is, right?
But it'll go to a guy that with a team.
They'll go to Bo Nix probably because
he's got stats over everybody. He commands the game. He just has a really bad defense, has given up points, and so they've lost 3 games. But man, that kid is a talent. So, but they're not going to be in the playoffs. So it's going to go to one of the teams that's in the playoffs. So the same thing happens in the NFL. It's unfortunate.
Absolutely.
Because now we got to pick, somebody from a winning team, not necessarily the best.
I will ask this: who do you think the MVP is? Because I have 2 players that we haven't mentioned that I think are certainly players that are better than the ones we've talked about, but it's still a small pool. But John, I'll start with you. Who do you think is the MVP this year? Just based on what we've seen so far. I mean, I know it's not the end of the season yet.
I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes is going to be in there because, Lamar Jackson will be in there because those are the top 2 seeds in the AFC.
Why is Mahomes in there? Mahomes has been not that great. He's
21 touchdowns, 9 picks. That's better than Jalen Hurts' stats. More yards, more touchdowns, and less picks.
Oh, it's fine. I'm just curious because, to me, I don't think Mahomes deserves to be in the conversation. So I want to get your opinion on it. I'm not saying.
If you said Hurts belongs in it, but Mahomes has better stats, and the only reason Hurts beat him is because Marquez Valdez-Scantling can't catch a football. Then he wins head-to-head, and they end up having the same record instead of
but maybe Mahomes takes a little bit off the pass or throws a little bit harder and he catches it. So maybe it's Mahomes' fault.
Anybody that's ever played football knows if a receiver gets a ball, touches the ball with his hands, he's got to catch it. That's the rule.
Yeah, JB, I kind of disagree with you there. I'm kind of with John on that one. That's a rule I hold as well.
Did they lose? He threw the ball to a guy.
I'm just saying,
he threw it to somebody else.
I'm just saying, keeping the context, Mahomes has better stats. The only reason Hurts is MVP or considered the top is because they're 10-1. If they were 7-4, he's not in the MVP conversation because his stats aren't great. 18 touchdowns and 10 picks.
What stat matters more than wins?
But
what stat matters more than wins?
You got to have everything. The whole resume's got to add up, and it doesn't for Jalen.
You're saying, So who is your MVP right now?
I don't know who my MVP.
You don't even have an answer. So you don't even
I
have an
don't
answer.
have
So
an
you
That's
have
a
an
little
opinion.
concerning.
You know what? I've got
so many guys. I
two.
mean, you could put Dak with his
Dave,
stats.
I'd like to hear
They're
yours.
83.
Absolutely.
Like
I've got two. You know what? And this name's come up and has been dismissed. But C.J. Stroud is having
Oh, thank you.
a great season. You know, he's got 19 touchdowns, 5 picks. A rating of over 100, and he's a doggone rookie, man. And he's persevered through, you know, when a rookie could fold his tents, you know, because when you do so well and then you have some rough games and then you could fold your tents or you could just persevere and come back. And I watched him play. He's a baller. And you watch his demeanor on the sideline. He's a baller, and you watch how he treats his teammates. I mean, that guy plays football, and I like him. I think he is solid. And here's another one that's come up. He hit a rough spot and then only came back and had a perfect game, and that's Purdy.
Dave, can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yeah.
Are you going to the whiteboard to write something in a second? You're going to give us like the next play?
He's already
You got
wrote
the
it probably.
marker in your head.
Hey, don't mock me. I take this show very serious, and I'm making notes.
I love
he
that.
has receipts.
Wait,
Maybe he has receipts.
I'm 59 on Friday, 59, and I'm concussed. If I don't write stuff down, I forget because you guys talk so much. I gotta make my notes so I can make a point. Anyway, so Purdy and CJ, I think, are going to be the two front runners as the season shakes out.
CJB.
Listen, I think those are two phenomenal choices. This, I would have to say, though, we do have to look beyond quarterback. I know the voters don't, but in all honesty, Christian McCaffrey is the MVP.
I hate
Take him
you
off the
both so
49ers.
much.
Take him off the 49ers. They were a different team. Listen, no disrespect to Purdy. I think we could put 29 other quarterbacks that are starters right now to play there, and they'd probably be just as good. Not trying to disrespect Purdy. Now, C.J. Stroud, phenomenal what he's doing. Do I think he's MVP caliber yet? No, but I think he can be if he keeps doing what he's doing. But to me, in all honesty, I'm going beyond the quarterback because I do agree with John. Hurts is having a down year compared to last year. So, yeah, I look at that. And same thing with Mahomes. Mahomes is not Mahomes, but that's because he has nobody to catch the ball. You know, I think, in all honesty, and I know I took Jake's thunder with that. I think McCaffrey's the MVP this year. In all honesty,
no argument from me.
You both stole the. So it was funny because I said I have two players in mind, and I said there's no way they both get talked about. I figured McCaffrey would get talked about like that. I was pretty confident about, and I was okay with that because I figured he's the best running back. He is phenomenal, and he brings so much like to that team. But Dave, I'm so happy and annoyed all at once because CJ Stroud was my pick the whole time if I had to go quarterback.
Oh, phenomenal year.
The award is not the best player. It's not the offensive player of the year. It's the most valuable player. That is the point. So who is bringing the most value to their team? Okay, CMC, fantastic example. I think he is the best running back, so he's best in his position, and that helps. But he also helps that team win all the time. I mean, he scores touchdowns almost every game. It's basically a walking touchdown.
Missed one this year. One this year that he played.
Exactly. But to Dave, your point, and that's why I agreed with you so much. I was a little frustrated. You know, you beat me to it, but I agree. CJ Stroud took a Texans team that was terrible last year and has made them a talking point. They're relevant. He looks amazing at the position. And not to mention, he's working with a bunch of rookies on the team. His receivers are not a bunch of veterans. His two top receivers in Nico Collins and Tank Dell are rookie receivers. And he's got Dalton Schultz. That's his quote-unquote safety blanket, if you will, as a veteran player. But he's got a lot of rookies around him, and he looks awesome. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks. So
I'll tell you
that's
what.
the thing. It's the most valuable, not the best player.
We've seen a lot of quarterback receiver, tandems just evolve. Just think about this Texans team. To your point, Jake, 3 rookies at those key positions, and if they can keep them, pay them, and develop them, in 3 years they're going to be almost. I mean, they're going to be almost unstoppable. Because there's just all that. Yep. There's that continuity, and there's that knowing exactly what the guy is going to do. And they're having these phenomenal rookie seasons. We'll see what the sophomore, what do they call that? The sophomore slump or the sophomore something next year. But I think they're really building something down there.
And CJB, like the hard part about when you say who's your MVP, I don't know if I can add in non-quarterbacks because I already know that a non-quarterback is not going to get it.
God,
so what's the point?
It's your MVP. That's all.
What's the point of
It's
putting
your
in
MVP.
Tyreek Hill or CMC or whatever whenever I know the NFL is not even going to consider these guys? Now, we all know that CMC or Tyreek Hill or guys like that should be considered. Defensive players
That was a great
should
call.
be considered, but they never will. So it's like, what's the point of putting them in my MVP list when they don't have a shot because it's a quarterback award?
Because it's
Because,
your MVP.
John,
It's not the league's
First of all,
MVP.
you're in
It's
the
yours.
media. You're in the media. So you have a right to have an opinion on who you think the MVP is. You don't have to follow suit with everybody else. You're not a fan. You're not a nobody. You're a media entity.
No, I
So
understand
who is
that.
your MVP?
But I understand that. But whenever I already know that those guys aren't going to even get considered, it's no point. Like in my mind, it's no point even putting them in my race because they don't have any shot. I mean, we didn't
Just
even
answer the
mention.
question.
We didn't even mention.
We just want to know your opinion. That's all this is.
We didn't even mention what Dak has done. They're 8-3. The only
Sure.
reason Dak isn't getting talked about with his stats is because the Eagles are 10-1 and leading the division over them. They're 8-3. Look at Dak's stats. He's right below 3,000 yards, 70% completion percentage, 23 touchdowns, and just 6 picks. Like, those stats are way better than Mahomes. Those stats are way better than Jalen Hurts. Like, those, if you look at touchdown to interception ratio and yardage, those are the best stats in the league out of any quarterback, putting everything together. They just don't lead their division because the Eagles are the Eagles, and that's the only reason Dak isn't in that race right now. Otherwise, if the Eagles were 7-4, Dak would be at the top of the MVP list.
You know what I think maybe too a little bit, John, is that everyone's waiting for the shoe to fall off of Dak because
Right.
he always does this. He does this. He comes out and he gets into the conversation. He gets into the thing, and then he blows up the last 3 weeks. And he throws a bunch of picks and causes them wins, and that's just my kind. I have no stats behind that. That's just me following football.
No, I'm with you.
That's Dak, though.
It used to happen to Russ.
That's my point. So that's why he's not getting in the conversation because people are tired of putting him in the conversation. He earns his way into it, and then he turns into Dak.
And then he forces his way out.
The clock struck midnight. He's no longer Cinderella.
Remember Russ every year in Seattle? He would have phenomenal start to the season. Middle of the season, he would disappear, and then the end of the season, he would have a great end of the season. And he never got one MVP vote in his entire career because he would always disappear right in the middle of the year, and then that would kill it for him every single year.
That had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the fact he played in the Pacific Northwest, where they don't get any attention.
No,
and also the defense and run game carried them for a long time.
Yeah.
Or at least, yeah. But no, look, Dak is fair, but you also remember he started off kind of slow. So I think that factors in. Just my opinion.
How about this guy?
It's just a thought. And I'm with Dave. I'm waiting for him to fall off. I know it'll happen. It's just a matter of when.
You know who the MVP for our Atlanta listeners are? Derek Carr. Derek Carr.
Yeah.
That pick six in the Atlanta game Sunday.
Yeah.
We're back in first place, the Falcons.
How many pick sixes were there this weekend? There were a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. There was a record-breaking one, I think, Thursday.
The Dallas game.
3.
Yeah. And then I know Tua gave up one, and I think Love
Tim
or Purdy
Boyle
gave up
one.
I mean, there's a bunch.
Had
one because I called it. I literally called it.
Hail Mary.
It was like, hey, they're gonna get a pick six here because like either only 8-yard line, and the very next play, boom, pick six. So there was I would say close. I mean, 8 or 10 pick sixes. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Dobbs could have had a couple.
Not used to be.
Dobbs.
He could have had a couple.
Oh, that poor cat. I watched the game of that, and I'm like, it'll be great for him to have a great breakout game. And holy smokes, did he not?
Why does the NFL keep punishing us with these Monday night matchups? Why do they do this?
Dobbs was not all on him. I mean, he didn't play well. I'm not going to argue that. But he did have a couple of his receivers.
Passes,
yeah.
But it's still 4 picks.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah. That's why I wish there was a stat or you could put an asterisk, like, put it on the receiver. Like the receiver gets
almost
the pick
like ERA.
They had the ball and they missed it.
like ERA and under
Yes,
runs.
An error doesn't count,
Exactly.
right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
an error.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, rumor has it the next week they're going to kick the Seahawks up to the Monday night game. What was that? Was it next week?
I wouldn't
I don't know.
recommend
Which-
it. They
which
play
game?
San Francisco in week 14.
Yeah.
This week you play the Cowboys on Thursday.
Well, and I don't know what it was. It was one of those posts that you read it and you're like, man, that would be just dumb.
Well, there's two Monday night games next week, which I don't understand why. In the middle of December, we're having two Monday night games in week 14.
The NFL wants to shove
mediocrity
on
Saturday, man. I love those Saturday NFL games when college football's on.
Neither one is good. The Packers, the Giants, and the Titans and Dolphins.
Titans-Dolphins could be fun.
No, it can't.
No, it
to
can't.
watch the Dolphins put up a lot of points. Bet the over.
Nobody wants to watch that except for like
over.
you, another Dolphins fan, you weirdo.
Bet the over.
Listen, as a Giant fan, I don't want to see them play the Packers on a Monday night.
That's
I don't want to see them play on a Sunday. Yeah, and I don't want to see the Titans play. So,
JB, I
I'm
don't want
to
to watch
either one of those games.
I don't want to watch the Giants play on a regular Sunday, let alone have to watch it on prime time. I watch them, and I don't want to really watch to begin with because
I don't want to watch the Seahawks play any more primetime games. I'm sorry, Dave, but I don't know what happened to the Seattle team, but they've given up. Like,
no,
just like
you know what? I know when we get on our show following this one, when we get on the Hawk Talk, we're going to have some hard conversation. It's just time. You gotta shake something up. To your point, they've made some moves defensively, and the Williams, the kid in the middle, actually had a great game. He made some great plays, but boy, we got to do something at quarterback because it's just not happening. We've got this great skill set, and we're not doing anything. The offensive line is struggling a bit, but there's ways that you can work with a struggling offensive line. The Bengals have been doing it for years. Their offensive line is horrible. Burrow is somehow able to, throw up a bunch of yards and still score a bunch of points. So there's ways you can navigate that. I know there's a lot of people calling for the offensive coordinator, but to your point, I get it. It's frustrating because you look at him and go, and they gave us some hope because they started out so strong a little bit, but man, they're still the team that we thought they were going to be at the bottom of the division. Unfortunately,
I was one of the biggest supporters of the Seahawks going into the season.
But before we go any further, Dave, did you have the Seahawks this week on mybookie.ag?
Oh yeah, I did. Of course, I could say what I need to say, but I'm not going to bet against them. Yes, I really thought they were going to do something. I thought they were going to make this move, and now gosh, we're going into Dallas where they are smoking, and they're great at home. They're so strong at home, it's going to be it's a tough deal because not only do we go to Dallas on Thursday, but then we go up. I'm actually going to be up at the Niners game up at Levi Stadium, and then we get to travel to San Francisco and play them. Yeah, it's a rough schedule.
And then you play Philadelphia after that at home.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Dave.
Nice.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Dave, blow him up for us.
He goes
first rule of betting, Dave. First rule of betting: bet against your team when needed. Money is more important than your team. Money rules the world.
Okay,
your team will be there no matter what.
You asked me who I picked on the show.
When I look at your money in his wallet, Dave, I gotta see.
When I'm on my bookie, then there's a little bit different.
There's a little more stakes involved.
You're right because of money.
Use code Sideline 50%. Although I did have the Giants this week in a nice parlay, and it paid well. I think an underdog. I mean, they were playing the Patriots. It wasn't much of a stretch to
Congrats,
take
JB. We won another meaningless game because, of course, we did.
Every time that game came on Red Zone, I immediately stopped watching. Every time they put it on Red Zone, I stopped watching.
Yeah,
it was so
I don't really blame you. I really want to
You know why they won? It hurts their draft pick. Yep. The Giants were definitely going to win these games.
Of course.
The
only reason they're winning is to screw themselves.
I went to my bookie and I did this. I go, I know the Ravens are gonna kill the Chargers, which they didn't, because the Chargers haven't had a defense. I've been to at least one of their games, watched them live get trounced by the Lions, just gutted. And I watched a couple of their games, and I thought, man, the Ravens are just going to run all over these cats, and then they're going to, give the ball to their talented quarterback. They're going to be playing catch up, so they're going to huck up some points. So I took the Ravens with the giving up the points and the over. Oh. And as soon as I picked the over as part of the parlay, I heard you, I heard Raphael, I heard everyone go, take the under. Nope. I was so sure, but yeah. Under. It
was definitely an under. It was definitely an under. I thank Raphael every time I hit a parlay because of that.
Or something. It's like so horrible.
Every time I hit a parlay now with the under, I say, Raphael, that's the man.
That's the man.
Well,
the other thing I want to talk about, just very quickly on a personal note, because we play fantasy football, and Dave decided he didn't want to join us, unfortunately. And John, you knew it was coming.
I wasn't invited. I wasn't invited.
Yes, you were.
I was not invited.
You were, and you said our money was too little of a pot. We all heard the conversation. Anyway,
it might have been
John,
the night you were drinking. I'm not sure.
That could be. That's there you go. But what needs to be said was, John, I enjoyed beating you. Thank you for another win, and I'll see you in the playoffs probably.
Well, I scored the second most points this week next to you.
I know.
I beat you earlier in the year, so I can't be
mad. You didn't beat me earlier in the year. You haven't played me this year.
Yeah, I beat you like week 3. Yeah, I beat you like week 3.
I forgot about that already because I'm now I'm now the 3 seed and I jumped you 2 spots.
Chill.
So, John, you have a poo-poo roster. You have not a much money.
I don't think anybody cares.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, nobody cares about fantasy football. That's not in our league, guys. I know we all think we're.
That's always been the rule of fantasy football. Nobody cares about anybody else's league or team.
Nope. Yeah,
exactly.
I just enjoy making fun of John.
A lot easier ways to do it.
You're a Giants fan. Anyway, go on.
Hey, Frog.
Okay.
Well,
so Dave, who's better right now, Jordan Love or Derek Carr?
Wow.
Well, I mean, Dave wanted to talk about Jordan Love.
Yikes.
Is that one of those lob pitches where you feel sorry for me? Like I can't pick. Is Derek Carr even playing?
Ask the Falcons.
Sometimes.
Well, the thing is the reason why I brought up Jordan Love earlier is because he's been slammed on this show by a few people as being a horrible quarterback. And so I watched that game, and I wanted to watch it with the intent of seeing, because I've seen bits and pieces. He was impressive this last weekend, and he threaded the ball. I mean, he made some passes, man, that were just pretty amazing. He navigated the entire game, and he acted like a quarterback. We were talking about why quarterbacks get the MVP. Well, I know some really talented quarterbacks that couldn't make it in the league because they weren't leaders. They were talented, man. They'll shoot. I played with Todd Santos at San Diego State, set the all-time NCAA record for passing, was a Heisman, just in the discussion. Never played it down in the NFL. Couldn't make a team. Couldn't make the World League. When I was in Montreal, he was like one of the first cuts. He'll shoot your eyes out, but he is quiet and he's not a leader. Jordan Love, the guys rally around him, and I think he's actually a talented quarterback. The problem with Jordan Love is he's playing on a not very talented team. I mean, that team has gotten gutted. And so I think that, they've got a good quarterback to build on. They just need to surround him with talent like they did for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that guy had arguably some of the best receivers in the league. Well, the best receiver in the league, and then had a decent run game, a great offensive line for a number of years, and a pretty good defense, pretty stout defense. So I think there's been a lot of pressure on Jordan Love. I as a quarterback, man, I really liked watching him. He looked really good.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying he's bad, but I'm not impressed yet.
So, Jake,
I don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be, but I don't think he's an answer for an NFL team.
Well,
agreed.
So there's another quarterback that this happened to. Alex Smith. Alex Smith up in San Francisco, when he came out of Utah, that guy, I watched him in college. He'd shoot your eyes out. I mean, he was so talented, But he got to San Francisco back in the day when they were struggling, and in 4 years he had 3 different head coaches or 3 different offensive coordinators and 2 head coaches, whatever that number was, because it was a while ago. And everyone goes, "Oh my gosh, this guy's horrible." Well, I beg to differ. That guy, if he had a solid team around him and solid coaching staff, we'd still be talking about Alex Smith, because he ended up having a pretty decent career at the end of his career when he was with a good team. But he got killed his first 5 or 6 seasons and run through the ringer in the media, and nobody believed in him. That's a perfect example of how we misjudge people in certain positions. We don't look at what he's surrounded by. And so that's my opinion, of course. But Alex Smith was one of the I really thought he was going to be one of the best quarterbacks ever, and he got hooked up with a really bad team at a bad time.
So Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts have the same amount of picks. Jordan Love has 1 more touchdown than the MVP, Jalen Hurts, and they're 100 yards separated in passing.
How many rushing yards does Jordan Love have?
But Jalen Hurts is the MVP.
Yeah, really. That's kind of an important question.
It's crazy, though, that, the guy that we all crushed, and Dave is bringing up a point about how.
Notice how John doesn't answer the question.
Jordan Love is talented.
He ignores it.
And Jordan Love has more touchdowns than the MVP, Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
How many rushing yards does he have?
He has 321.
Jordan Love?
Yeah.
Oh,
what does Jalen Hurts have?
He doesn't.
Jalen Hurts rushing.
I'm looking at him right now, John. 221.
Oh.
So he has more rushing than Jalen Hurts. Interesting.
Are you sure? Are you
He's
sure
quick,
about that?
man.
I'm just saying, we got to look at some stats if we're going to put a guy like Jalen Hurts as
hold on.
MVP.
John, are you sure about this?
Just
because Jalen Hurts, I'm pretty sure, has more rushing yards.
Yes, 410. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, so Jalen Hurts has more total yards.
Yeah, rushing yards. But just saying, for a guy that doesn't have weapons, and Christian Watson was out for a while, and he has more touchdown passes, and he doesn't have A.J. Brown, he doesn't have Devonta Smith, and he doesn't have Goddard, and he doesn't have a Hall of Fame offensive line, the best center in the history of the NFL. Jordan Love is putting up pretty good stats, considering he doesn't have all of those things I mentioned.
I wouldn't say he's putting up great stats.
I said pretty good stats for not having.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just disagreeing with you.
If you understood what you were saying, you wouldn't have said what you just said. Because
I understood what he said.
And I agree with.
I watched Jordan Love play, and I think the stats are not really telling the story.
Well, that's what Dave was saying. Is like he said that in what he said a little bit ago. He said he doesn't have the weapons, but yet he's still putting up pretty solid stats with nothing around him. If you gave him an A.J. Brown and a Hall of Fame offensive line, I think that his stats would look better than what they are.
I would just like to make a very important point. I'd like to make a very important point on Jalen Hurts that I think you're missing. The reason his stats are not as high is because they run the ball a lot, so he has a lot less work to do. So he's very efficient when he has the ball in his hands, but he doesn't have to do nearly as much work. Jordan Love has the ball a lot more in his hand, is not nearly as efficient because their run game has not been great this season because Aaron Jones has been hurt, and when he has played, he really hasn't looked very good. And A.J. Dillon has been a backup running back at best. So you can compare those stats, but they're not the right story, and that's why I disagree with what's being said. And that's Jalen Hurts, if he had to throw as much as Jordan Love, he'd have 10 extra touchdowns probably, but he doesn't have to.
Probably would have like 10 more picks too.
I don't.
But you're also missing a bigger story, the leadership aspect. I mean, Jalen Hurts has had to lead this team to how many comebacks? When Washington 2 games where they gave up a lot of points. This last week against Buffalo should have had them buried multiple times. This team doesn't quit.
But Jalen Hurts has also put them in positions to have to come back a lot by turning the football over so many times. So that also you got to factor that in when having to come back. If you don't turn the football over as much, you don't have to put your defense in bad position.
Sure about that? Because I've seen their defense. I'm pretty sure that's the issue here. The Eagles' defense has been porous.
Well, try not turning the football over as well. I'm just saying.
So, Mahomes has 9 interceptions. Love has 10. I mean,
is Mahomes putting the Chiefs in bad positions? I don't think so.
Yes, he is.
He is?
Yes, he has put him in
You and I must
bad
be watching
positions
different games.
Tua has 10 interceptions.
Let's hear John talk about bad about Tua. Come on.
Yeah, Tua. I mean, I said you could go look at my Twitter. Go read my tweet.
No, I want you to say it out loud.
Great. Tua started out great earlier this season, but he has regressed a little bit in the middle of the season, and so his first reads, teams have taken away his first reads, and then whenever they have to go to that second read, the line hasn't held up, and so he struggled a little bit. Whenever
No.
and
So, I
that
mean-
was the worst criticism of your own quarterback. Not because your analysis was bad.
So,
your analysis was
I'm not
really good,
finished.
actually. And I give you, but you haven't said a bad thing about Tua. You have blamed
I
the
did.
line. You blamed other defenses.
I said
for
he's
taking away his
regressed
first
in the
read.
middle of the season. He started out hot, but then in the
And you're
middle
s-
of the season. So
Okay.
watch that Jets game. The one play where he got fooled, and this has been happening more, is where it looks like man coverage, and then they drop it in the zone. As soon as the ball is snapped, they drop into zone coverage. It looks like man to begin, and it drops in the zone, and he gets fooled because he thinks he has man coverage, and then he goes to his read, but it's actually zone and everybody's dropping back, and he's fooled, and then he almost throws an interception. That's happened quite a bit this year, and that's something that he needs to work on, and that's something that I've noticed that he has struggled with, is sometimes he struggles with identifying man or zone, which one it is.
I'd just like to point out, he didn't tell me how Tua put his team in bad positions because he didn't talk about any turnovers. He talked about almost making turnovers. He talked about how the offensive line doesn't hold up when it goes past the first. Hold on. You talked about how the offensive line doesn't go past the first, has struggles past the first read, and you said that the first reads have been taken away. Why are you not talking about this like to Jalen Hurts or to Patrick Mahomes as no receivers whatsoever, basically? Why are we not talking about that, but you're making the excuses for Tua?
Well, you asked me to.
If we're just going to go by stats,
you asked me to
if we're
break
just going to go by stats, Justin
So I did.
Herbert's the MVP. He's got 20 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions.
So,
I mean, with 2,800 yards. So, I mean, he's the clear MVP if we're just going
Must
stat
be.
wise.
Well,
There's
I said
more than
Dak
just
has the best
numbers that go into it.
But you know. But
You think
I mean, I
Dak's
just broke. You asked
better
me to
than
break
Herbert
down why
stat-wise?
Tua struggled, and I did break it down why he struggled. I gave you every
No,
reason why he
you blamed the offensive line and other defenses is what I felt like I heard. I'm just being honest. But anyway, you're comparing Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts, and like I said, the offenses are built very different. Jordan Love has felt like he has to carry the entire team. Jalen Hurts hasn't, so their stats are really not equal. It's like apples and oranges. Justin Herbert, kind of the same thing. Justin Herbert has been better than most quarterbacks. Why? Because the run game has not been there. He's been forced to pass the ball, and he's in a passing happy offense. That's kind of how it goes.
because their defense is like a sieve, and they're playing catch up every game.
That's also very true.
So, Jake, I did say the offense is predicated on timing, but he's been predetermining lately where he's been going with the ball in some throws. And it's causing his turnover numbers to tick up. National televised games this year, I've noticed he's been getting fooled on man that are actually zone. So again, you could go back on my Twitter, and I broke all of that down.
Well, when I asked you to explain
why
it here,
he's
you just
been
made
struggling.
excuses. That's all.
Thank you.
That's fine. I heard you make a couple excuses, but
And then on top of that, Russ only has 4 interceptions with 20 touchdowns. So I mean,
he must be the MVP.
Russ has played
his race
really
goes even
well.
better.
I think Russ has played really well for Denver this year.
Wilson.
He just doesn't get the credit.
Well, so I believe me when we were talking about this MVP conversation, the third was going to be Russell Wilson. And what he's done, talk about persevering. Of course, he brought a lot of it on himself with a huge contract, walking in, and I'm going to save the Broncos because here I am, guys. Lucky you, and I'm going to save this team. And man, that was the wrong way to go in. And what happened to him is he got humbled. He got humbled the first part of the season, going, man, you better check yourself. And you know what? He has played his style of football. It's changed. It's almost like a pivot. And it's almost like Sean Payton said, you know what, man? Hey, we're going down in flames. Go do your thing. I'm gonna back off you a little bit because Payton was on him. And they were not getting along. And it's almost like, oh, you know what, bro? we're both gonna be looking for jobs next year if we don't figure this out. So go do your thing. And I don't know this to be true, but it just seems like it because man, they're just having fun. They're going out there and they're beating teams. And, I look at, this week's game and shoot, I had it. They got the Texans and they're on the road against the
big
hot kid we're
statement
talking
game.
about.
Yep.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to go on the road and beat that kid who's hot. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't bet against them right now because there's so many other factors that go into a team winning. We've talked about this. We talked about the MVP. There's so many factors that go into MVP other than stats. Stats are a big part of it, but it's just that mojo and it's just that feeling, the team feeling, the guys rallying around, and then you start thinking, well, shoot, we could beat all those teams. We could walk in anywhere and win. And it's fun to watch. He's on a 5 or 6 game winning streak with them, and he's making plays happen. And I'm happy. I'm happy for him as a guy. I've been fortunate to be able to meet him and talk to him a little bit. He's just a great man of faith, and so like I said, a lot of it was very humbling for him. But he stuck it out, and now they're starting to see it and have a little bit of fun.
And I thought go on, Jake.
I just wanted to make one last point on the whole Jordan Love thing and put a real fork in it because I was looking at some stats. The other thing that, those touchdowns, interceptions don't show you are Jordan Love's completion percentage is only 60.5, which is really not that great. It's below average for a quarterback. And his quarterback rating is an 87.4. And I will talk about Russ on this because he's actually a great example of somebody who's been really efficient with the football, which is what I was talking about. But Jalen Hurts, 67.6 on the completion percentage, and about a 95 to 94.9 on the passer rating. And Russ, as Dave, you alluded to, he's actually been really good. 68.3 completion percentage and 103.4 on the passer rating. So why Jordan Love does not deserve to be in that same conversation?
This is his first year starting really in the NFL.
I'm calling a timeout.
My point here. Just timeout. I want to
finish your point, and then I'm going to bring somebody in.
It's very simple. Those guys have been efficient with the football, and they've made their plays when they had to. Jordan Love is not, and that's what the stats don't show.
Okay. Now we're going to get to the person who's going to tell us who's right now is leading the MVP race and how it's changed. Raphael, how you doing?
Pretty good. I forgot to text you that I was going to be able to jump on. I just got off the air, so I apologize.
Awesome. So no big deal. So we were talking about the MVP race, and a lot of talk about it. But I know that the odds have changed recently, and people have moved up and down. Right now, who are the MVP front runners, and what are the odds on them?
Well, like I said last time when we talked about this, numbers move not because of how you're playing; they move because of how the money is coming in. So let's just because your quarterback had good on TV, or the quarterback who still lives with mom who's won 2 games, that does not mean that he's a high commodity to be MVP. So yeah, is Dak Prescott getting a lot of love right now? Yeah, but it's not because of his play. It's because of who he's played and money coming in. Right now, it's Jalen Hurts. Right now, if it's season ended, Hurts wins by probably a landslide. Is what I'm hearing. Second place is probably be a battle between Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, and then the next tier would be probably Tua and Brock, and you could probably add Dak into that mix.
And it's crazy. Lamar has only thrown 13 touchdowns this year, which is just crazy to put him in the MVP conversation when he's nowhere close to being statistically a top tier quarterback. But they're 9-3. So
that's why
we said at the beginning of the show, your record for these MVP things, like in the NBA, if you have the best record, you automatically have a legit shot to win the MVP. If you're the best player on the best team, you automatically are like right up inserted to the top.
Baseball and hockey are the only sports that you don't have to be in first place or even make the playoffs to get best player awards. Those are only 2, not NFL, not NBA, but those are only 2.
Hey, Raphael, what about Heisman?
It's a 2-team race. I mean, Michael Pence has to probably throw 8 touchdowns and beat Oregon by 50 just to get probably second place. Right now, it's Bo and Daniels. I think just because of the extra game that Oregon has to play, and I think the death of the Pac-12 is going to probably be a lot to do with a lot of these maybe favoritism in the Final Four when it's all said and done. The Heisman, the all said and done. I think the death of the Pac-12. I think maybe that's why you might see a lot of love for Bo Nix. And if Oregon wins, if Oregon beats Washington and they have one loss, but we have other one losses, I think Oregon will probably get a little bit more love because of the depth of the Pac-12.
Yeah. What a shame.
You know what I find interesting, and I mean, we're going to talk about mybookie.ag. If you missed it last night, it's only happened, I think, one time on Monday night this year when the numbers got over. If you didn't bet the under on mybookie.ag, again, you're throwing away money. Raphael has told us multiple times, and I'm drilling it into every listener's head because I listened to Raphael, and I've made money on this week after week. Bet the under on Monday night games.
1 in 13. The first 13 out of 14 Monday night games have gone under the total. And we had this conversation last week about mediocre in the NFL. Last night was full of the work that I've been telling. It was horrible football displayed on TV. They should have changed the channel and put the Monday Night Football game on PBS.
And it seems like it's more than Monday night games. The Sunday night games have been under a lot too. I mean, the Ravens Chargers was under.
Yeah,
another great under game.
A high-scoring baseball game is what that game was.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
why didn't they flex Kansas City, Green Bay out of that spot and put San Francisco, Philly? Even flex the Monday night game of Cincinnati and Jacksonville. Granted, they probably made Cincinnati, Jacksonville because of Burrow, but Burrow's not there. I'm sorry, flex them out. You have to have San Francisco and Philly on one of those. I believe in one of those prime.
The ratings would be insane for that.
Yeah, but they give us mediocre. But this is the league that we all drool, and it's the greatest sport that ever invented. And
we still watch.
They know we'll watch it.
I didn't watch. I did not watch. I did not watch the Black Friday game. I did not watch 1 second of the Black Friday.
I watched every second of it.
Besides the Hail Mary, you didn't miss anything.
I watched a boring game again.
Not 1 second of the Black Friday game. I thought the Thursday night game.
Thursday night games were bleh.
Yeah, I thought it was. It was if you were rooting for San Francisco, it was a good game.
Well,
this is
we weren't. So
this is our Seahawks game.
Well, we weren't. So
but I'm just. This is how bad the week was for all sportsbook, and my bookie included. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Green Bay Packer game over with. Everybody in the world had Detroit. Everybody.
Yep.
One of my bosses at one of the books that I do consulting work. He's like, hey, if we can get Washington in and Seattle in tonight, I'm going to send you a Christmas bonus. And he wasn't joking. He was dead on serious. He goes, we made so much money on the Lions-Packer games that wiped out teasers and parlays and everything was on it. He goes, if we get Washington and Seattle in, he's like, I'm sending you a nice Christmas bonus. He's like, it'd be crazy. I'm like, okay. I'm not going to
complain about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain like that. So those didn't come in, and then the outcome of what happened on Black Friday and Saturday, the favorites were 12-3 coming into the Monday Night Football game. The books got crushed. I mean, all that money we won in the Packer game, we just said, hey, we were like, here's your guys' Black Friday. Woohoo!
Yeah, go shopping.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say one thing about
that's why the Black Friday, that's why it was, $11 billion spent. Yeah. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Listen, I was never so happy to sleep late Thursday morning. I woke up after kickoff because I didn't sleep good Wednesday night. I was so glad because I would have taken the Lions. It was winning without winning. It was a beautiful thing. I logged on to my bookie account.
Pop up. I'm like, oh, this could get. I'm either going to have a really, really good afternoon or a really, really shitty afternoon because if the Lions would have won and blown them out, I would guarantee I was going to get some kind of a text message. Hey, can you do some extra prop bets for the late game? Can you do something for the Egg Bowl? Can you try to get some more excitement and more money in for the Egg Bowl? I was like, oh, so I was.
Well, I wonder how many survivor pools died picking the
a lot.
Lions.
I can't remember the percentage, but a lot of people, which was kind of shocking. Why, if you're in a survivor pool, why would you waste it on Detroit on a Thursday game, which they've never had good luck. Even when Barry Sanders and Megatron were there, they never had good luck on Thursdays. So
on top of that, it was a division game.
Yeah, so
never played division games.
Yeah, if you play Detroit on a survivor pool on Thanksgiving, you deserve your turkey to be dry.
Yeah, it's just bad. It's bad for business. Although there are some survivor pools that I read about, you have to pick. They made him pick a Thursday, Friday game, and then a weekend game, and they all were division games. So I guess you had no choice at that point but to pick a division game. And if you're one of those pools where that had to happen, that was rough because you had some of the better teams that you kind of hold on to just in case you needed one. It makes it a little bit more difficult. You got to actually plan a little bit of that type of pool.
Yeah. It should
That's
be
why I don't do that stuff.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, if you're still no Survivor, if you're still Miami's going to be a big love for this week in Survivor, and they're on the road, so I mean, you can't really say it's a for sure thing. Dallas is going to be probably a big one. Oh, sorry, Dave, on that one. So, and even Jacksonville. I mean, for how they played in the second half to beat Houston and all that. Now they're on a primetime Monday night against Bengals, who lost to a Steelers team, so they're going to be big in Survivor pool.
You were gonna say a not so good Steelers team. It sounded like you sound like
they are a good Steelers team because they play how their coach coach.
Yeah,
they're
not great, but they just play the right type of ball for them.
Team. Yeah, that's their style. There's
they've
no
already hit the over on their total season wins. So if you bet the over and you're just sitting back on the couch flipping your TV off laughing because everyone thought, this is the season where he's not going to go 500. This is the season, and look at this roster, blah blah blah. And look, again,
they've been running the ball well. That's why they're between that and defense. That's why they're winning.
Yeah. So
question for you, Rafa. What are the odds of the Falcons winning their division right now? Because they're back in first place after that.
I was gonna write that down for something that we do later on. I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but right now they got to be the favorites. Well, no, they're still tied with the Saints. They're plus 115. Yeah.
Really?
Interesting.
That was a horrible
game. They have the tiebreaker now.
There's another horrible game if you watch the Falcons. That was just ugly.
Unfortunately, I did.
I felt bad for the winner. I thought the only bright spot was Ludacris jumping down from the stadium. That looked like he was just on a bicycle seat. It didn't even look like he had a harness on. I'm like, what is this guy doing? He's like
that selfie that the Falcons social media posted with him coming down, and it was like right in the face of it when he was coming down. It was pretty cool.
Like I even showed my wife. I'm like, this guy's in his mid 40s, and look how they strapped him in. They must have a very, very bad life insurance policy or some kind of insurance there because they striped him in a bicycle seat with like one strap.
Wow. I mean, he was in all them Fast and Furious movies, so I'm sure he doesn't care about,
Oh, jeez.
Forget about that. Forget about Derek Carr. Derek Carr went on the never bet again list after the Saints cost me. That was horrible. Don't like the guy.
I wouldn't have
Unbelievable.
But yeah.
He actually had if you take out their red zone, he actually had a pretty good game with a bad offensive line still. I mean, they just couldn't score touchdowns. I mean, they moved the ball pretty much.
That's the problem.
And then once Olave got hurt with his concussion, he pretty much had no one left to throw with, and everyone knew it was either Kamara that was going to get the ball on either a screen or a handoff. So, I mean, he had
against him this week. Olave's probably not playing. With concussion usually puts a guy out at least a week nowadays.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Kamara just hasn't had the season. And this is probably I have to say his worst season I've seen. And but I'll tell you who did have a decent game was Bijan Robinson.
Both the running backs for
Atlanta. Time to play the kid.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about him. He's been a topic of discussion on a number of our shows, and he struggled a bit, but they got him the ball, they fed him, and he performed.
I heard from I could probably say this. I could probably say this on this show and maybe not on other show. I heard out of all the rookies in this that got drafted, he probably had the roughest adjustment to the NFL life, and I heard that's why a lot of the stuff that he wasn't playing and stuff like that. I guess he was having a hard time adjusting for it. You may know more of this, Dave, about adjusting to NFL life, studying, knowing the playbook, being on time for meetings, just the little things. I heard.
And then what you tug to do outside of the, off the field, you're tugging in a lot of places. And if you're
curfews
for
and
that,
stuff.
or you're apt to do that, and it's easy. I mean, what about the kid, in Las Vegas that got taken off of IR, activated, and then decided to celebrate that night by getting a DUI?
Dumb mistakes.
So I like how they played it off. They were saying they're arresting him. They didn't want to maybe throw him underneath the bus. I like how they protected him for that. But that's what I heard from a couple of my guys, that he was just having a hard time adjusting to the NFL life. Which, I always hear this all the time.
It's not easy.
Curfews kill rookies. Because they're like they want to party, got money in their hands finally, and stuff like that. They want to go out to the clubs and stuff like that. I heard curfews has a lot to do with a lot of people not playing in the first quarter or the first half.
Yeah,
well,
Atlanta
curfews.
Atlanta's like a sleeper party place though too.
Yes.
I know some cats. I know a guy. I'm not going to mention the name, but he did make the papers by missing the Super Bowl. That played in Atlanta. And he was one that led the prayer group, and so Atlanta will turn you out. We gotta be careful.
Speaking of curfews, though, we do have to get going. Jake, where can everybody find us?
Yeah, you guys can find us basically anywhere, but you guys can find us on all the social medias. Just look up Sideline Sports. Most of our social media handles are Sideline Sport 1, or just look up, like I said, Sideline Sports. It's the best way to find us.
Until next week, guys, we got Dave DeRocher, Rafael Esparza, John Shearer, Jake Malik, and myself, JB Ellis. If you're watching live, Hawk Talk is next. If you're not watching live, watch live on Tuesday, listen on Wednesday, and then watch Hawk Talk after us.
JB, before we go,
don't miss out.
Before we go, we are now on ngbn.tv. Our shows are now on there as of Tuesday night, the first night. So make sure you check out ngbn.tv now.
I think they're watching us, aren't they, right now?
I'm saying for the Atlanta listeners, make sure they check us out on there.
I sure hope so.
Hey, be good humans.
We'll see you next week.